You'll instantly become a better maker with these 7 tips. After I had been woodworking and building for a little while, I wanted to move away from exposed joinery and pocket hole screws to some more hidden joinery. And not only that, I wanted to try my hand at some tapered legs for a table or a desk as I'm building here. So here's a project where I got to accomplish both of those things. I really like dowel joinery, and it's super simple with this little dowel jig, and it's all completely hidden. I kept the offcut from my tapered leg, and I put down some tape, some CA glue, and activator, and this really helped me glue my table leg to the stretcher. I thought, how great will it be to show you just how easy this little piece is to take off, but it wasn't, although it's nothing a little screwdriver action and some sandpaper couldn't fix. Now this isn't as much a woodworking tip as it is a tool recommendation, but this Milescraft drill guide is a great tool if you don't want to spend the money on a drill press to drill perfectly straight holes into your project. Now it's not the most high quality drill guide out there, but it is really inexpensive and gets the job done. Although I did not use any plywood on that desk, I use a lot of plywood for my projects. And the things I love about plywood is that it's perfectly flat already, and you can get panels that are really wide. You do not have to mess with gluing up a bunch of hardwood boards to make a panel, and it can be less expensive. What I do not like about it, those exposed plywood layers on the edge. What do I do about it? I cover those plywood layers with hardwood edge banding. Here I'm using ash to cover the plywood layers on this mobile miter saw station, and I usually cut the hardwood edge banding about 1/8 or 3/16 of an inch thick. I'll put a link to the plans I created for this mobile miter saw station in the description, as well as all the other shop furniture plans that I have. This process is really easy. After I cut the edge banding, I just use wood glue and tape to secure that hardwood onto the plywood, and then a router with a flush trim bit to cut off the excess. This is a great way to take your projects from, oh, that's pretty good, to, wow, that looks really, really nice. Now, if you are going to use screws as your joinery method, as I am here for this workbench, there's an easy way to hide those screws. Dowels. You may be noticing that I like dowels. I like the look of exposed dowels better than exposed screws, and all I'm doing is I'm recessing some screws and then covering up those screws with dowels. I'm just using pine dowels here because this folding workbench is made predominantly of pine, but oftentimes I'll use oak or even walnut dowels, which gives a really nice contrasting look with the birch plywood or pine that I use for a lot of my shop projects. Well, look at that. Here's an example of me using walnut dowels on this double-sided mobile cabinet, which I made out of birch plywood. It's almost like I planned this. And surprisingly, walnut dowels are not much more expensive than pine dowels. You just have to be able to find them. I know Woodcraft carries a lot of different species of dowels, and you can sometimes find them at local lumber yards. Now you've probably noticed with my Bosch sander or rigid job site table saw that I don't like to break the bank with my tool purchases. And Banggood.com is a great place to find affordable woodworking tools and accessories. This miter gauge is such an upgrade from the one my table saw came with, and it's much less expensive than similar upgrades out there. I'm using this miter gauge, some clamps, and a square I got from them on my current project, which is a smaller folding workbench, which brings me to my next tip, a different workbench tabletop. Instead of just gluing 2 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood together to make the tabletop, I'm attaching 3-inch strips shown here to the underside of my plywood tabletop, which gives the piece some much needed rigidity while keeping the weight low. And keeping the weight low is going to be really important if you're going to unfold your workbench when you want to use it. If you're just starting out and don't want to pay a lot for woodworking tools, or if you want to upgrade but don't want to break the bank, Banggood.com is a great place to go. Your next tip is French cleats.
I'm using a French cleat system to attach the cabinet to the wall because it's super strong and really easy to accomplish. And I'll always take the easy way as long as I'm not sacrificing durability. Okay, here's how it works. I'll use long construction screws to attach one piece to the wall, making sure that the narrower side is against the wall like this, and the wider side is away from the wall. The other piece with the 45-degree angle cut into it is already attached to my cabinet, so when I hang the cabinet up on the wall, it'll fit right into the piece that's already secured onto the wall. I'm cutting the French cleat piece to its final dimensions, and then I'm setting my table saw blade to 45 degrees and cutting it roughly in half. Next, I'm drilling pocket holes into the French cleat piece that I'm going to be attaching to the cabinet. Make sure you attach this piece the correct way, and you should not be able to see the 45-degree angle from the back of the cabinet. I'm using construction screws to attach the other French cleat piece to the wall. I'm making sure to drill these screws into the studs in the wall.
I am kicking myself that I didn't use this tip sooner because it is so easy and will make your projects look so much better. Grain matching your drawer or door fronts, in this case it's drawer fronts. I am cutting all 3 drawer faces out of one piece of plywood and making sure when I attach those drawer faces to the drawer boxes, I'm attaching them in order so that the grain will be continuous throughout the cabinet. Simple, easy, and you'll see in a second it will make your project look really nice.